The war room of the dreadnought Stellar Dominance buzzed with activity. Holographic displays showed star maps, enemy positions, and tactical data that changed every few seconds. Commander Zareth stood at the center of it all, her forearms moving with practiced precision as she manipulated the displays. She was impressive to look at, 7 feet tall with scales that shimmered green and gold under the ship's lights. Her people, the Velthari, had conquered 17 star systems before humans had even learned to make fire. Every movement she made spoke of centuries of breeding for war. Around the table stood her hand-picked team. Each member represented the best their species had to offer. To her right stood Corex, a cybernetically enhanced warrior from the machine-loving Krex civilization. Half his body was replaced with advanced technology that could interface with any computer system. His metal arm could punch through steel, and his enhanced eyes could see in 12 different spectrums of light. Across from him waited Thais, another Velthari like Zareth but specialized in stealth operations. Her scales could change color to match any background, making her nearly invisible when she wanted to be. She had killed more enemies in the last war than most entire battalions. Next to Thys stood Gorak, a Thurian berserker whose people were known throughout the galaxy for their incredible strength and resistance to pain. Standing 8 feet tall and covered in natural armor plating, Gorak could survive in the vacuum of space for short periods and had once torn apart an enemy tank with his bare hands. And then there was the human. Marcus Chen sat quietly in a plain gray chair, his armor as unremarkable as everything else about him. While the others wore elaborate battlesuits covered in sensors, weapons, and status displays, his gear looked like something from a surplus store. His helmet sat on the table beside him, revealing a face that could have belonged to any human from any colony world. Zareth tried not to look at him too often. Having a human on her elite team was an insult she had to endure for political reasons. The Terran Colonial Defense Force had insisted on representation in joint operations. She understood the politics, but that did not make it any less annoying. "The target is Kepler 442c, Zareth announced, gesturing to bring up a 3-dimensional image of a small moon. "Our intelligence reports indicate the rebels have built a weapon facility here that could threaten entire star systems." The moon appeared barren from space, but the hologram revealed underground installations that stretched deep into the rocky surface. Red markers indicated known defensive positions, while yellow ones showed suspected locations of additional threats. "The weapon they are building uses quantum destabilization technology," she continued. "If completed, it could cause stars to collapse into black holes. Entire civilizations would die." Corex leaned forward, his mechanical eye whirring as it focused on the display. "Defensive capabilities? Significant." Zareth highlighted several areas on the moon's surface. "Energy shields protect the main entrances. Automated defense turrets cover all approaches. Our estimates suggest 2,000 armed rebels inside the facility, possibly more." "And our objective?" Thais asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Complete destruction of the facility and all research data. No survivors among the scientific staff. The rebels cannot be allowed to complete this weapon or share their knowledge with other terrorist groups." Gorak grunted his approval. The Thurian enjoyed missions where the objective was simple destruction. Corex nodded, already analyzing the technical challenges they would face. Thais simply smiled, an expression that would have terrified anyone who knew her reputation. Marcus said nothing. He studied the holographic display with the same quiet attention he gave everything else, but offered no questions or comments. Zareth found his silence almost as irritating as his presence. "The insertion will happen in 18 hours, she announced. "We will use stealth pods to land on the far side of the moon, then approach the facility on foot. The pods are equipped with the latest cloaking technology, so the rebels should not detect our arrival." She manipulated the display to show their planned route. A path wound between rocky outcroppings and small craters, avoiding the areas covered by the defensive sensors. "Corex, you will handle any security systems we encounter. Your cybernetic interfaces should be able to override their technology without triggering alarms." The mechanical warrior nodded. "Their systems are at least 50 years behind current Krex technology. It should not be difficult. Thais, you will scout ahead and eliminate any sentries we cannot avoid. Stay invisible and strike fast." "Understood, Commander." "Gorak, you will carry the heavy explosives and provide assault support when we reach the main facility. Your natural armor should protect you from their small arms fire." Good. I was hoping for a real fight. Zareth hesitated before addressing the final member of their team. Chen, you will provide backup support and watch our rear during the operation. It was a polite way of saying he should stay out of the way and try not to get killed. Everyone in the room understood this, including Marcus himself. He simply nodded as if he had been given a vital mission. Questions? Zareth asked. Marcus raised his hand slightly. The intelligence reports mention patrol schedules. How recent is that information? 3 days old. Why? Rebel groups often change their patterns when they know someone is watching. If they suspect surveillance, they might have altered their routines. Zareth felt a flash of irritation. Our intelligence assets are extremely reliable. The Velthari have been gathering military intelligence for longer than your species has existed. Of course, Commander. I was just wondering if we had any backup plans in case the situation has changed. Warriors adapt to changing circumstances, she replied coldly. That is why we are the best at what we do. Marcus nodded again and said nothing more. But Zareth caught him studying the display with that same focused attention, as if he was memorizing every detail. She wondered what he thought he could contribute that the others could not do better. The briefing continued for another hour as they reviewed equipment loadouts, communication protocols, and extraction procedures. Each team member would carry weapons suited to their species and role. Corax would bring hacking tools and electronic warfare devices. Thais carried silent weapons and camouflage gear. Gorak would be loaded with explosives and heavy assault weapons. Marcus would carry a standard infantry rifle and basic combat gear. Nothing special. Nothing that would make him stand out or give him any particular advantage in the coming fight. When the briefing ended, the team dispersed to make final preparations. Zareth watched Marcus gather his helmet and leave without speaking to anyone. The others at least exchanged words about the mission, sharing professional respect even across species lines. But the human remained an outsider. She told herself this was natural. He was the weakest member of the team, assigned for political reasons rather than ability. His people were newcomers to galactic warfare, with no real understanding of what it meant to fight among the stars. Still, something about his quiet attention during the briefing nagged at her. Most inferior soldiers would have asked more questions or tried to prove themselves somehow. Marcus had simply listened, learned, and left. Zareth dismissed the thought. In 18 hours, they would be in combat. The human would either prove himself useful or become a liability she would have to manage. Either way, the mission would succeed. Her team was too good to fail because of one weak link. She had no idea how wrong she was about everything. The stealth pods dropped through space like black tears, invisible to the rebel sensors scanning the area around Kepler 442c. Inside each cramped compartment, a warrior prepared for battle in their own way. Zareth checked her weapon systems one final time. Her forearms allowed her to carry twice as many weapons as most species, and she had chosen each one carefully. Plasma rifles, energy blades, and explosive charges hung from her armor in perfect balance. The descent took 40 minutes. When her pod finally touched down behind a rocky ridge, Zareth emerged into the thin atmosphere of the moon. Her armor's environmental systems immediately adapted, providing the mixture of gases her body needed. One by one, the other pods landed nearby. Corax appeared first, his mechanical parts gleaming dully in the light of the distant star. Thais materialized from what seemed like empty air, as her camouflage systems disengaged. Gorak's pod hit the ground hard enough to crack the rock beneath it, but the Thurian emerged unharmed and ready for violence. Marcus was the last to join them. His pod had landed silently and efficiently, but when he stepped out, nothing about him seemed particularly impressive. His armor remained the same dull gray, and his movements looked careful rather than confident. Form up, Zareth ordered quietly. Take point. Corax, scan for electronic surveillance. Gorak, watch our flanks. Chen, stay close and try to keep up. They moved across the moon's surface in tactical formation. The low gravity made jumping easier, but it also meant that any mistake could send them bouncing helplessly through the air. The experienced warriors adapted quickly, using their training to maintain control. Marcus seemed to struggle more than the others. His jumps were shorter and more careful. When the team had to cross a deep crater, he chose a longer but safer route around the edge while the others leaped directly across. Is the human having problems? Gorak asked over their private communication channel. He is doing his best, Zareth replied, though she shared the Thurian's concern. They were only 30 minutes into the mission, and already Marcus was slowing them down. The facility appeared ahead of them exactly where the intelligence reports had predicted. Energy shields shimmered over the main entrances, and defensive turrets swept the surrounding area with sensor beams. Everything looked normal. Too normal. This raised her hand in a warning signal. "Something is wrong," she whispered. "The patrol patterns are different. Guards are in positions that were not in our intelligence reports." Zareth felt the first touch of unease. "How different?" "They are watching approaches we plan to use. Almost like they know we are coming." Corex extended sensors from his cybernetic arm and scanned the facility. "Electronic signatures match our intelligence, but the positioning suggests they have redeployed recently. Within the last 12 hours. Could be coincidence," Gorak suggested. "Maybe they rotate positions regularly," Marcus spoke quietly. "Or someone told them to expect visitors." Zareth turned to look at him. "What are you suggesting?" "Nothing specific, Commander. But if I were defending this place and I suspected an attack, I would change my patterns to cover the most likely approach routes." Before she could respond, energy beams began cutting through the air around them. The team scattered as rebel forces opened fire from concealed positions that had not existed in any of their intelligence reports. "Ambush!" Korek shouted, diving behind a boulder as plasma bolts melted the rock where he had been standing. The mission had become a trap. Rebels emerged from hidden bunkers and began advancing on their position. Worse, these were not the lightly armed terrorists they had expected. These soldiers carried military-grade weapons and moved with professional coordination. Zareth activated all 4 of her weapons simultaneously, laying down suppressing fire while her team found cover. "Theiss, flank left and eliminate their communications. Corex, jam their targeting systems. Gorak, advance and break their line." The battle erupted across the moon's surface. This became a blur of motion, her camouflage making her nearly impossible to target as she struck at the rebels from unexpected angles. Corex interfaced with the enemy's electronic systems, causing their weapons to malfunction and their targeting computers to fail. Gorak charged directly into the enemy fire, his natural armor absorbing hits that would have killed any other species. His massive fists crushed weapons and bones with equal ease as he carved a path through the rebel forces. But there were too many of them. For every rebel they killed, 2 more appeared from hidden positions. The intelligence had been wrong about everything. This was not a research facility with light security. This was a military fortress disguised as a research facility. "We need to retreat," Corex called out as his left arm was hit by enemy fire. Sparks flew from damaged circuits and his mechanical fingers stopped responding. "No," Zareth snarled. "We complete the mission. The weapon cannot be allowed to exist." She looked around for Marcus and spotted him crouched behind a small rock formation. He seemed to be taking minimal part in the battle, firing occasionally, but not with the intensity she expected from a soldier in a life-or-death situation. Another wave of rebels appeared from a direction they had not been watching. The team found themselves surrounded, caught in crossfire from multiple positions. Their ammunition was running low and this had taken a hit that damaged her camouflage systems. "Commander," Marcus said over the communication channel, "there is a maintenance tunnel system that connects to the main facility. I can see the entrance from here." Zareth glanced at her tactical display. "Where?" 30 meters to our right behind that cluster of sensor equipment. It was on the facility blueprints but marked as sealed. "How do you know it is not sealed?" "Because I can see rebel soldiers using it to move between positions. They are coming and going through an access hatch." Zareth looked where he indicated and realized he was right. She had been so focused on the immediate threats that she had missed the larger tactical picture. The rebels were using underground passages to outflank them repeatedly. "If we can reach that tunnel, we might be able to get inside the facility," Marcus continued. "But someone would need to hold this position to cover the approach." It was suicide. The rebels had them pinned down with overlapping fields of fire. Anyone who tried to cross that open ground would be cut to pieces long before reaching the tunnel entrance. "We all go together," Zareth decided. "Coordinated assault, maximum firepower." "That will not work," Marcus said quietly. "Too many angles of attack. We need a distraction." "What kind of distraction?" Marcus was quiet for a moment, studying the battlefield with that same focused attention he had shown during the briefing. When he spoke again, his voice was calm and steady. "Someone needs to draw their attention while the rest of you reach the tunnel. Create enough noise and movement to make them focus on the wrong target. Who? Zarath asked, though she was beginning to understand what he was suggesting. I will do it. Absolutely not. You are not equipped for that kind of assault. I am not equipped for any kind of assault, Commander, but I can run fast and make them chase me. Give you the time you need to reach the objective. It was the logical choice, and Zarath hated that fact. Marcus was the weakest member of the team, the most expendable. If someone had to sacrifice themselves, it made tactical sense for it to be him. But something about the way he said it bothered her. There was no fear in his voice, no resignation, just calm acceptance of what needed to be done. Stand by, she told him. Let me think of another option. But there was no other option, and they both knew it. The rebels were closing in. Their ammunition was running low, and every second they waited made their situation worse. The mission was falling apart, and the human was offering to die to save it. The situation was getting worse by the minute. Energy beams cut through the air above their heads as more rebels moved into position. Zarath could see at least 40 enemy soldiers now, with more arriving every few minutes. Her team was trapped in a kill zone with nowhere to run. Ammunition report, she ordered. 60% remaining, Corax replied, his damaged arm sparking as he tried to repair the circuits. 40%, Thys whispered, her camouflage flickering on and off from the damage to her systems. Still good? Gorak growled, though Zarath could see blood seeping through cracks in his natural armor. 70%, Marcus said quietly. Zarath was not surprised that the human had the most ammunition left. He had been firing less than the others, taking fewer risks, contributing less to their defense. It was exactly what she expected from someone who did not belong on an elite team. Another group of rebels appeared on their left flank. The enemy was systematically closing off all escape routes, content to take their time and eliminate the intruders with minimal losses. It was professional work, the kind of coordination that spoke of real military training. We are running out of time, Corax observed. They will have us completely surrounded in 10 minutes. Zarath studied the tunnel entrance Marcus had spotted. It was 30 meters away across open ground, covered by at least 3 different firing positions. Even if they all rushed together, half the team would die before reaching safety. The tunnel is still our best option, she decided. Marcus, you said you could create a distraction. Yes, Commander. Explain your plan. Marcus was quiet for a moment, still watching the rebel positions with that strange, calm focus. I go out there and make noise. Draw their attention. When they focus on me, you and the others reach the tunnel and get inside the facility. That is suicide. Probably. His casual acceptance of death irritated Zarath more than fear would have. You have family? People who will miss you? Everyone has people who will miss them. Then why volunteer for this? Marcus looked at her directly for the first time since the battle began. Because it is the mission, Commander. The weapon has to be destroyed. Something in his eyes made her uncomfortable. There was no resignation there, no fear, no desperation, just professional assessment of what needed to be done. It was the look of a soldier who had accepted death long before this mission began. There has to be another way, she said. Commander, Thys interrupted. They are moving again. 2 more squads approaching from the rear. Zarath checked her tactical display and saw that this was right. Soon they would be completely surrounded with no chance of escape. The mission would fail, the weapon would be completed, and billions of innocent people would die when the rebels used it against populated star systems. I could try to fight through to the tunnel, Gorak suggested. My armor might protect me long enough. Negative. You would not make it halfway. What about an electronic assault? Corax asked. I could overload their weapon systems all at once. Your arm is damaged. You do not have enough power for a large-scale attack. Marcus spoke again. Commander, we are running out of time to debate this. Every minute we wait, they get stronger and we get weaker. He was right, and she hated him for it. The logical choice was to let the human sacrifice himself while the rest of them completed the mission. It was cold military mathematics, the kind of calculation she had made dozens of times in previous battles. But something felt wrong about this situation. Marcus was too calm, too willing to die. Normal soldiers might volunteer for suicide missions out of duty or desperation, but they showed emotion about it. Fear, anger, sadness, something. Marcus showed nothing except professional interest in the tactical problem. What is your real plan? She asked suddenly. I told you my plan. No, You told me what you want me to think your plan is. What are you actually going to do out there? Marcus was quiet for several seconds. When he spoke, his voice carried a note she had not heard before. Not emotion exactly, but something deeper. I am going to complete the mission, Commander. By getting yourself killed, by doing what needs to be done. Before she could ask what he meant, enemy fire intensified around their position. Plasma bolts began melting the rocks they were hiding behind, and she could hear rebel voices coordinating their final assault. Decision time, Corex warned. They are about to rush us. Zarath looked at Marcus one more time. He was checking his weapon and adjusting his equipment with the same methodical precision he showed in everything else. Nothing about his behavior suggested fear or desperation. If anything, he seemed more focused than he had been all day. Fine, she said finally. You have 5 minutes to create your distraction. When we reach the tunnel, you break contact and follow us inside. Understood, Commander. I mean it, Chen. This is not a suicide mission. You get out of there alive. Of course, but even as he said it, Marcus was doing something strange. He began removing pieces of his armor, starting with the shoulder guards and working his way down to the chest plate. Each piece hit the ground with a heavy metallic clang. What are you doing? Zarath demanded. The armor slows me down. If I'm going to run around out there, I need to be fast. You will be killed instantly without protection. Maybe. He continued removing armor pieces until he wore only a black bodysuit and his basic gear harness. In the dim light of the distant star, he looked smaller and more vulnerable than ever. Just a human in cloth preparing to face military-grade weapons with nothing but speed and luck. This is insane, Thais whispered. This is suicide, Corex agreed. Marcus picked up his rifle and checked the power cell one final time. When he looked at them, that strange calm was still in his eyes. But now there was something else there too. Something that made Zarath's instinct scream warnings she did not understand. Give me 60 seconds to get into position, he said. When you hear shooting, move fast and do not look back. Chen, wait. But he was already gone. One moment he was crouched beside them. The next he had vanished into the maze of rocks and shadows surrounding their position. Zarath had not even seen him move. Where did he go? Gorak asked, confusion clear in his voice. Zarath scanned the area where Marcus had disappeared but saw nothing. It was as if he had simply ceased to exist. For a moment she wondered if he had abandoned them entirely. Then the shooting started, but it was not the sound of a desperate human making noise to distract the enemy. It was the sound of rebels dying in ways that did not make sense. Screams cut off mid-syllable. Weapons fire that started and stopped in seconds. Voices calling for help that received no answer. What is happening out there? Thais asked, her damaged camouflage systems trying to analyze the chaos. Zarath had no answer. Whatever Marcus was doing, it was working. The rebels were no longer focused on their position. In fact, many of them seemed to be retreating toward the facility. Move, she ordered. Now! The team sprinted toward the tunnel entrance, expecting to be cut down by enemy fire. But the rebels were too busy dealing with whatever Marcus had become to notice 4 warriors running across open ground. They reached the tunnel without a single shot being fired in their direction. Behind them, the sounds of battle continued. But it no longer sounded like a human creating a distraction. It sounded like something hunting. The maintenance tunnel was darker than space itself. Zarath activated her armor's lighting systems and began moving deeper into the facility, her team following in tactical formation. Behind them, the sounds of battle continued on the surface, but they seemed muffled and distant now. What do you think is happening up there? Corex asked, his damaged arm sparking as he tried to use his sensors. The human is buying us time, Zarath replied, though she was not sure she believed her own words. The sounds filtering down through the rock did not match what she expected from a desperate distraction. There were too many screams, too much chaos, and not enough return fire from the rebels. The tunnel system was larger than their intelligence had suggested. Side passages branched off in multiple directions, and the main route was wide enough for vehicles. This was not simple maintenance access. This was a full transportation network designed to move large amounts of equipment and personnel. The facility is bigger than we thought, Thais observed, studying the tunnel walls. Much bigger. They moved for 10 minutes before reaching the first security checkpoint. It should have been heavily guarded, but when they arrived, they found only empty chairs and abandoned weapons. The guards had left their posts and run toward the surface disturbance. Corex interfaced with the security terminal, and began downloading data. "Internal communications are going crazy," he reported. "Multiple calls for backup, requests for reinforcements, and this is strange. What? Someone is reporting that their perimeter teams have stopped responding. All of them. In the space of 15 minutes, they have lost contact with 40 soldiers." Zareth felt something cold settle in her stomach. 40 soldiers did not simply disappear, even against superior firepower. That was not distraction. That was elimination. They continued deeper into the facility, following signs toward the main laboratory complex. The tunnels here were cleaner and better maintained, with proper lighting and environmental controls. This level of infrastructure required serious funding and long-term planning. "Commander," Gorak said quietly, "I am beginning to think this is not just a weapon facility." "What do you mean?" "The scale is too large. The defense is too sophisticated. This feels like a major military installation disguised as a research site." Zareth had reached the same conclusion, though she had not wanted to voice it. Their intelligence had been wrong about everything. The question was whether it had been wrong by accident or by design. They reached another checkpoint and found it similarly abandoned. Korax accessed the computers again and discovered that the facility's command structure had ordered all available personnel to respond to the surface incursion. Whatever Marcus was doing up there, it had convinced them to abandon their posts throughout the complex. "Internal sensors show the main laboratory is 3 levels down," Korax reported. "Heavy security, but most of the guards have been pulled away to deal with the surface problem." "How many remain?" "Difficult to say. The system shows maybe 20 personnel in the lab area, but I cannot tell if they are scientists or soldiers." The team descended through a series of transport shafts, using their equipment to override the security systems. Each level revealed more evidence of the facility's true purpose. This was not a hastily built rebel base. This was a permanent installation that had been under construction for years. When they finally reached the laboratory level, Zareth understood why the rebels had been so confident about their security. The main lab was enormous, stretching out of sight in both directions. Massive machines hummed with energy, and display screens showed complex calculations related to quantum physics and stellar mechanics. The weapon was not just under construction. It was nearly complete. "How long until it is operational?" she asked Korax. He interfaced with the nearest terminal and began analyzing the data. According to these readings, they could begin testing within days. "Full deployment capability within weeks. Can we destroy it?" "Yes, but we need to target specific components. The quantum resonance chamber, the stellar targeting array, and the main power coupling. Destroy all 3 and the entire system becomes useless." "Where are they?" Korax highlighted 3 locations on his tactical display. They were spread throughout the massive laboratory, each one heavily protected by security systems and blast barriers. Under normal circumstances, it would take hours to fight through the defenses and plant the necessary charges, but circumstances were far from normal. The laboratory was eerily quiet, with only a skeleton crew of technicians monitoring the equipment. Everyone else had apparently gone to deal with whatever was happening on the surface. "Split up," Zareth ordered. "Thais, take the resonance chamber. Gorak, handle the power coupling. Korax, you and I will target the targeting array. Plant your charges and meet at the central elevator shaft in 20 minutes. "What about the human?" Gorak asked. Zareth paused. She had been trying not to think about Marcus. The sounds of battle from the surface had stopped several minutes ago, but there had been no communication from him. No signal that he was still alive or that he would be joining them. "Chen knows the extraction plan. If he is still alive, he will find us." It was a cold statement, but it was all she could offer. Marcus had volunteered for what they all knew was a suicide mission. The fact that he might have succeeded beyond expectations did not change the likelihood that he was dead. The team split up and began moving toward their assigned targets. Zareth and Korax approached the stellar targeting array through a maze of support equipment and computer terminals. The few technicians they encountered fled rather than fight, more concerned with escaping the facility than protecting their work. "This is too easy," Korax observed as they reached the targeting array. "Where is the security?" "On the surface, dealing with Chen, or what is left of Chen." Zareth did not respond. She was beginning to suspect that whatever had happened to Marcus, it was not what any of them had expected. The reports filtering through the facility's communication system painted a picture that did not make sense. Entire squads of rebels simply vanishing, Security teams found dead in ways that suggested close combat, but with no evidence of who had killed them. She shook off the thoughts and focused on the mission. The targeting array was a delicate piece of equipment that required precise placement of explosives to ensure complete destruction. She and Corex worked methodically, setting charges at critical junctions and weak points. Charges set, Corex reported. This array will not be targeting anything ever again. They moved toward the extraction point where Thys and Gorak were already waiting. Both reported successful placement of their explosive charges. The weapon facility would be completely destroyed when they triggered the detonation sequence. Any word from the human? Thys asked. Nothing. They waited at the elevator shaft for 5 minutes past the agreed time, but Marcus did not appear. Zarath finally activated the facility's emergency communication system and tried to reach him. Chen, respond if you can hear this. We are ready for extraction. Static filled the channel for several seconds. Then clear and calm, Marcus's voice replied. Extraction in progress, Commander. Main facility is secure. What is your position? Surface level conducting final sweep. Final sweep of what? There was a pause before Marcus responded. Remaining hostiles. Something in his tone made Zarath uncomfortable. It was the same professional calm he had shown throughout the mission, but now it carried undertones she could not identify. Chen, get down here now. We are leaving. Understood. 2 minutes. The channel went silent. Zarath found herself staring at the elevator shaft, wondering what exactly they would find when Marcus arrived. The reports from the surface suggested that a single human had somehow eliminated dozens of armed rebels in less than 30 minutes. That was not possible. It was not remotely possible for any individual, regardless of species or training, unless everything they thought they knew about humans was wrong. The elevator arrived exactly 2 minutes later, as Marcus had promised. When the doors opened, Zarath expected to see a wounded human, possibly dying, who had somehow managed to survive long enough to rejoin them. Instead, Marcus stepped out as if he had been taking a casual walk. His black bodysuit was torn in several places and stained with substances she preferred not to identify, but he moved with the same quiet efficiency he had shown throughout the mission. He carried his rifle in one hand and what appeared to be a rebel communication device in the other. Status report, Zarath said, trying to keep her voice steady. Surface is clear. All hostile forces have been neutralized. Facility security systems are offline. We have a clear path to the extraction point. All hostile forces? Yes, Commander. How many? Marcus consulted the communication device. 87 confirmed. Possibly more in the lower levels, but they do not appear to be responding to calls for help. Silence filled the elevator shaft. 87 armed rebels eliminated by one human in 30 minutes. It was not possible. It violated everything they knew about human capabilities, human limitations, human nature itself. How? Corex asked, his mechanical voice carrying something that might have been awe. Marcus looked at him with the same calm expression he had worn throughout the mission. Standard infiltration and elimination protocols. There is nothing standard about what you just did, Zarath said. Perhaps not for your species. The simple statement hung in the air like a challenge. Perhaps not for your species, as if humans routinely accomplished impossible things that other races could not understand. We need to leave, Marcus continued. I estimate we have 15 minutes before rebel reinforcements arrive from their other installations. Other installations? Marcus handed her the communication device. This facility was one of 7. The weapon project is larger than your intelligence indicated, much larger. Zarath scrolled through the intercepted communications and felt her blood turn cold. The rebels had not built one weapon. They had built 7 identical weapons, each one capable of destroying star systems. This facility was just the test site. We have to warn the fleet, she said, already done. I transmitted the coordinates to all 6 remaining facilities before coming down here. When? While I was securing the surface. He said it as casually as someone might mention checking the weather. While eliminating 87 armed soldiers, he had also managed to gather intelligence, hack their communications, and transmit critical data to their fleet. The team moved toward the surface in stunned silence. When they emerged from the tunnel system, Zarath saw what Marcus had accomplished during his distraction. The rebel base looked like a battlefield from ancient history, when armies fought with primitive weapons and wars were decided by individual skill rather than technology. Bodies were scattered across the lunar surface, many of them in positions that suggested they had died without ever seeing their killer. Equipment lay abandoned where soldiers had dropped it while fleeing. Defensive positions had been overrun so quickly that the automated weapons were still tracking empty air, searching for targets that no longer existed. "This is not possible," Thais whispered, her enhanced senses analyzing the battlefield. "One person cannot do this." "One person did do this," Gorak corrected, though his voice carried the same disbelief. Marcus was already collecting pieces of his discarded armor, putting each piece back on with the same methodical precision he used for everything else. As the gray plates clicked into place, he seemed to shrink back into the unremarkable human they had known before the battle. "Chen," Zareth said quietly. "Yes, Commander?" "What are you?" He paused in attaching his chest plate and looked at her. For just a moment, something flickered in his eyes, something that might have been amusement or pity or both. "I am exactly what I have always been, Commander. Human. Humans do not do what you just did. Humans do exactly what I just did. We just usually try not to do it in front of other species." "Why?" Marcus finished securing his armor and picked up his helmet. "Because it makes them uncomfortable." He said it so simply, so matter-of-factly, that it took Zareth several seconds to process the implications. Humans routinely accomplished impossible things, but they hid their capabilities to avoid making other species uncomfortable. "The armor," she said suddenly. "It was not for protection." "No. It was to make you seem slower, weaker." "Yes. And the way you acted during the mission. Asking simple questions, staying in the background, letting us take the lead. Also, yes." Zareth felt something fundamental shift in her understanding of the galaxy. Every assumption she had made about humans, every casual dismissal of their capabilities, every moment of irritation at having one assigned to her team, all of it based on a lie. Not a lie told by humans, but a lie told by every other species who preferred to believe that humans were weak, rather than accept what they actually were. "How long?" she asked. "How long what? How long have humans been like this?" Marcus put on his helmet and activated his communication systems. "Always, Commander. We just got very good at hiding it." The extraction ship appeared overhead, drawn by the signal Marcus had sent earlier. As they prepared to board, Zareth found herself looking at her human teammate with entirely new eyes. During the flight back to the fleet, she accessed the Galactic database and began researching human military history. What she found changed everything she thought she knew about the species that had seemed so unremarkable. Earth was classified as a death world by every other spacefaring race, not because it was hostile to life, but because it had produced a species capable of surviving and thriving in conditions that would kill most other forms of life. Humans had not just evolved on a dangerous planet. They had evolved to be dangerous themselves. Their military training programs were considered classified information by the Terran Colonial Defense Force, not because they were advanced, but because they were considered too intense for other species to understand. Human soldiers were not trained to fight wars. They were trained to end them. The concept of special operations existed only in human military doctrine. Other species had elite units, but none had developed the systematic approach to warfare that humans called asymmetric combat. The idea that a single individual could eliminate an entire enemy force was not just possible in human military thinking. It was expected. Marcus Chen was not an exception among humans. He was standard, and he had spent the entire mission pretending to be weak so that his alien teammates would not feel threatened by what he actually was. When they returned to the stellar dominance, Zareth filed her mission report with unusual care. She described the successful destruction of the weapon facility and the discovery of the larger rebel network. She mentioned Marcus's role in securing the surface and gathering intelligence, but she did not describe what she had seen him do. She did not mention the 87 dead rebels or the way he had moved through their defenses like a force of nature. She did not speculate about human capabilities or question the assumptions that kept other species comfortable with their human allies. Some secrets, she realized, were kept for good reasons. Marcus never mentioned the incident again. He returned to his quarters, filed his own report, and prepared for the next mission with the same quiet professionalism he had always shown. When other crew members asked about the battle, He gave simple, factual answers that revealed nothing about what he had actually accomplished. But Zareth noticed things now that she had missed before. The way other humans on the ship moved with controlled precision, the way they asked careful questions about alien physiology and culture, the way they seemed to know things about warfare and tactics that they had never been taught. Humans were not weak newcomers to galactic civilization. They were apex predators who had learned to wear the mask of civilization so well that even they sometimes forgot what lay beneath it. And when that mask slipped, when a human removed his armor and walked away in silence, entire armies could disappear in the space of 30 minutes. Zareth never insulted another human again. Not because she had been ordered to show respect, but because she had finally understood what respect was owed to a species that could destroy worlds, but chose instead to protect them. The galaxy was safer with humans as allies rather than enemies. And now she knew why.